Hi everyone, thanks for joining us this morning on this webinar. So I'm Mike Smitherman. I've got Louis Bedard here from our technical team. Morning, Louis.
Good morning.
So the idea this morning is we're going to kick off the new year, although it's February already, with a general platform overview of Metric Insights and what we're up to and what's available in our latest release. Just a few housekeeping items. The lines are muted, but feel free to add questions into the Q&A or chat window. If we see them, we'll probably address them as we go along, or we can field any additional ones at the end. The webinar is being recorded, so we'll send that out afterwards to everyone. So let's kick it off. I'm going to chat through a couple of slides just in terms of what Metric Insights is up to over here. So some of the challenges we're trying to solve in the BI space. Give you a quick intro to the areas of what we call push intelligence, which is our solution. And Louis is really going to spend the bulk of the time taking us through a demo of the platform. So, what is it we're trying to solve over here at Metric Insights, and what's the challenge that we see with business intelligence in our customer base? Well, it's really that for the majority of users, we're seeing pretty low engagement with content and data that exists in your BI infrastructure today. And when we talk about users, we're talking about those people who maybe have a couple of minutes each day to think about data and find out information that they're going to use within their job. And so why does that low user engagement exist? Well, it's typically because there's more data than ever in more systems than ever, and it's pretty challenging to figure out where the pertinent and relevant information is that I need to make a decision right now. And so oftentimes we'll see customers who have multiple BI tools, multiple reporting platforms, multiple content in different operational systems. And for the user, they're generally just overloaded with information. They can't easily find what they're looking for, so they stop and start putting burden back on the BI team when they have questions that they need answering. And so that's the problem that we're trying to solve in Metric Insights, or that we are solving, and we do it by becoming this layer on top of your data infrastructure, which connects to all your systems, be it underlying databases where there's information which isn't even making it into your existing reporting tools, whether it's operational systems that you have out there like a CRM or a customer support application, or whether it is your existing BI platforms that you're using across the business. We plug into all of those sources, and we really take a three-pronged approach to solving this problem. And as we go through the demo, we'll go through each of these areas in a lot of detail. But at a high level, it's the ability to basically organize and catalog all your data and content that exists out in the business. Again, regardless of where it came from, whether it's metrics coming from an underlying database or a dashboard from a BI tool. It's the ability to then enrich that content by really doing the heavy lifting for your users. If they have a lot of information, there's too much to manually comb through. So the ability to automatically uncover anomalies and exceptions in all that data and bubble it up to something that's meaningful and actionable. And then the third thing is distributing that content to the right place at the right time. So if we find important information, we want to make sure it's in the right place for that user so that they're easily consuming it, whether it be on mobile or through the application or in another application that they're using within the business. So those are the three areas that we're going to go through in detail on the demo this morning. And again, the first of those is the ability to organize content in the concept of what we call a consolidated BI portal that allows you to easily get everything in one place for your users. So I'm going to hand over to Louis, and he'll take you through this bit to start.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, so what we're looking at right now is the homepage of Metric Insights. So this is our application. As you can see, it's a tile-based system, and each and every tile that you see on the screen here is an independent element for us. So on the right-hand side here, you can see that those tiles could be a link to your favorite dashboard, as Mike just explained. Could be a link to your favorite Tableau dashboard, Power BI, MicroStrategy. As you can see here, we're showcasing the fact that we can connect to multiple different BI tools, no matter what they are. So a link to those BI dashboards. On the left-hand side here, you're seeing metrics or KPIs. So for us, is the ability sometimes to extract data, extract KPIs, may not be from these dashboards or from relational data sources, in order to present and produce KPIs. And we'll see that what we're doing with those KPIs, with the ability to profile them, etc., as Mike just touched on. And at the bottom of the screen, what you're seeing here is different types of exception reports. We'll touch on that today. We'll take a look at the different types of exception reports we can create. The beauty about those exception reports is, the fact to basically trim down large amount of data into only the data that you need to be paying attention to. And the last style that we're seeing on the right-hand side here is just a link to, third-party system, in this case, our video library that we have on YouTube. So this content typically is organized here on the left-hand side. This is where we're organizing our content. Initially, all those styles will sit into those different categories that we have here set up on the left-hand side. And for further organization, you can put those styles also in folders and into favorite folders as well. On top of the screen here, we're seeing multiple different search capabilities, right? So us working as an organization of all your content, you may want to look at your content organized by different types of folders where they are placed at, different types of refresh frequency, different types of tags, and so on. Even be able to find them by different sets of filters. So if I want to look at my data by different types of countries and so on, I could regroup my data this way. I can apply different filters as well. If I want to find my Tableau, only my Tableau data, I could be able to find it out this way by filtering it in that perspective. Even tags. So all these tiles can be tagged by one or multiple tags, and therefore, if you want to find all your tags related to a particular subject or areas, it's easy to go ahead and find it this way. And last but not least, keyword search as well. Of course, we're able to do keyword search, find items that are partial keyword search and things of that nature. Very easily, the system will find all the tiles that contains this type of information. So that's how we're placing this information here inside of these, those different types of tiles. On the top of the screen here, you're noticing as well that on top of our menus here that we have access to, we have a link to your favorite documents or document library as well. So in this case here, if I want to find all my different restores for my use cases, I may want to see what are the latest notes, release notes that we have. So just selecting one of those elements bring you back to our help page, looking at those different release notes and so on. So last point I want to mention here is the fact that right now I am logged in as an administrator, so therefore I have access to all the content within the organization. That's why I have the content of all those different categories here. However, you can imagine that someone coming in and belonging to the sales and marketing department would come into Metric Insights, and the only two categories that they would see would be those two categories. And then they wouldn't see the others, of course. And then within those categories, this user will have filtered views access to his data as well. So in other words, here you're seeing the same KPIs dimensioned by different types of region. So a particular user responsible for his own region would only see the region that they have access to and not the others. So multiple different layers of security applied to the system. What you're seeing here also is that I highlighted some of these styles with a yellow star like this. And that, in essence, is what helped me created my daily favorite folder. So today, in my sales and marketing environment, these are the different KPIs and dashboard that I'm interested to see. And therefore, when I want to see those dashboards, and this my content is all organized this way. So, and if I want to open a particular dashboard like this Tableau dashboard here that we have, it's pretty simple. As you saw, I just clicked on my tiles, and now what ends up happening is I'm running Tableau literally live inside of the application, and that goes along for all those different BI tools that we support, we work with. One thing I'd like to highlight before giving it back to Mike is the fact that you're noticing that this dashboard has multiple different filters on the left-hand side by country, channel, product category, and so on. It's really hard to go through all those different filters every day to see what's important and what matters in this data, and this tag along to how we can enrich this type of data.
Okay, so step one is in solving this engagement problem is ensuring that users don't have to know which tool to go and look at to find the data they need. So that ability to catalog everything through a single interface. Step two then is to start trying to narrow down the information into what's important right now to each user. And the way we do that is by really enriching the content that you have already. And when I talk about content, that could be existing dashboards, which is the example we're going to look at, but it could also be data sets coming from underlying databases, operational systems. But we're going to look at some examples where we're taking dashboards like the one that Louis just showed you and really trying to understand what's happening in those dashboards by doing things like looking for anomalies in metrics and time series data that we might be able to capture and look at, looking at exceptions in the data, and Louis will touch on this, but where you've got a lot of different combinations of values, which ones are exceptional today. Looking at what's changed in the data. So oftentimes dashboards are great for showing me sort of what's happening right now, but what's changed day over day, hour over hour that might require my attention, or getting even more detailed into sort of statistical analysis against that data to bubble up things that perhaps we're not aware of, that we haven't been looking for, that might be something that we want to go and look at in more detail. So what we're going to take you through now is sort of taking that dashboard and looking at how we can apply some of these concepts to really get some headlines for the user in terms of what they might want to focus on and where they might want to set their attention.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mike. So going back in the application where we left it off on this Tableau dashboard, now we're going to go back to the home page, and we'll see how, as Mike just talked about, how we can enrich this data. The first thing we'll look at is taking a look at the KPI that was actually sourced from this Tableau dashboard here. So taking a look at this particular KPI, we'll start with our standard view first. So what, as Mike just explained, what you're seeing here is the typical time series data. We're looking at 4 weeks worth of data highlighted by this, this blue line, and the red line here is representing our moving average. So what's happening when we're loading data and Metric Insight is we're actually profiling the data. And you see an example of this on the right-hand side. So we're actually loading, of course, the metric value, current value, and time, and so on, but then calculating the percentage changes, the moving average, minimum, maximum, and so on. So we're doing this because then, if I switch from my standard to my statistical view, the idea here is to be able to detect statistical anomalies. So the pink band around my moving average here represents my standard deviation, and therefore data points that are falling outside of my standard deviation represent statistical anomalies. This particular KPI here is based on the 30-day moving average and the 2 standard deviation, but you can imagine that this can be adjusted by KPI. So in this example, I believe I have 9 months worth of data. Then you can see where Metric Insight detected those statistical anomalies for the data. And this is done, by the way, across all different dimensional values that I have or that I have access to, as we're seeing here. So that's one way to detect anomalies, and this is done automatically out of the box as Metric Insight's loading the data, it's profiling it to highlight those. Another way that we can detect anomalies is by creating rules, exception rules that then would generate alerts. So for us, the ability to create KPI alert rules, we have several different capabilities to do those, comparing a data point to a fixed value, if I'm above or below a threshold value that has been set. If you want to compare your data points against a prior value, or even better, against an average as a prior value, or you would compare your Mondays to Mondays, Saturdays to Saturdays, January to January, things like that, right? And so on, even volatility level band. So that means that if a data point falls between 1 to 2 standard deviation, perhaps I want to be alerted. But if they fall between 2 to 3 standard deviation, alert me and Mike, things like that, of that nature. Comparing a data points to a target, sometimes you may have a target or threshold you're trying to meet that varies over time. So you may want to compare your data points against a target. And finally, combining all those different data points together, those alerts together, can create very sophisticated alerting scenarios. So for a quick example here, I'll select average as a prior value. And the idea to create an alert criteria here with the system, it could be alert me if my data points are 10% above or below the average of all days of the week for the past month. As you can see, a lot of permutation here. I want to see this happening every time this is happening. And I would like to receive this alert via email digest. Also have the ability to receive this information immediately. And just to show you those capabilities here, we can send information via email, SMS, a phone alert tray. We'll talk about all this in a second. And every time it happens. So once you select, you made your criteria, you can even simulate the way this alert is going to be generated. So this example here, my simulation is telling me that actually it's going to trigger 13 times in the next 30 days, which may be too much, right? So if I change my criteria here, I want to simulate it again at 20%. So okay, now 3 times over the past 30 days, that seems to be manageable. And you can even do a simulation across all your different dimensional values that you have to see if the alert is actually well calibrated. And in this case here, about 14 alerts in the past 30 days for all my different regions seems to be reasonable. So that's it. Now that we like that, the next thing that that I want to do is really just see what my email would look like. So if I'm sending an alert email like this one, could send this this chart that we generated here, or you can even put as a payload of this application the dashboard that we just looked at from Tableau, right? The Tableau sales analysis dashboard that we're just looking at a second ago. Well, since we loaded data from there, we detected an anomaly from this dashboard, might as well send an email that contains this particular dashboard so users can go ahead, receive this email, and then be able to click directly through this to go back into Tableau for further analysis. And last but not least is the ability to then assign a workflow to this particular alert. So if you want the alert to be obviously triggered, generated, and assign someone to receive this alert, it's possible to do this here. So there we go. So that's a brief review of what we can do in terms of creation of alerts here for this particular element. One last thing here I wanted to mention also is that for any particular metrics, you may have the ability to, again, take a look at your different types of content. In this case, I would like to have the definition of my metrics that is applied here. So a lot of documentation can be placed around these. So that's one way to enrich the data is via those KPIs of this metric. Another way to enhance it is actually via the means of creating exception reports. So this particular report here, what I like is that, again, we're looking at our Tableau dashboard here. So as we talked about before, the combination of your country, channels, and product category generates a whole lot of permutation of this data. Metric Insight has the ability to load all this data across all the permutation of these different filter values here in order to produce a data set and then find the exception through those this data set. So in this case here, as you can see, we snapshotted the data on a daily basis. The result of the snapshot gives me over 1,500 rows of data every day. Obviously, I would never go through this. But the question that I'm interested in being answered today is that, can you show me just the area where there's a combination of country, channels, and product category where my sales are down more than 50% compared to the previous day? So for those of you who knows BI well, you know that this is not an easy query, right? You need to get the information for today, the information for yesterday, perform the calculation, and only trim down my 1,500 rows of data to my 6 rows where this particular exception happens. And then we can even show you your particular dashboard in context of the exception that we found. So the first one we're seeing here is Australia, store visit to wine furniture. But if I want to see what's happening, let's say in Canada, corporate sales and wine furniture, you're noticing that you can change this filter value here that is then being passed directly along your Tableau dashboard. And now you're looking at your Tableau dashboard in context of your exceptions. So there's many different types of exception reports and statistical reports that we can do. But I think, Mike, for the sake of time, we'll leave it here and move on to the next section here.
Yeah, just before we move, I guess let's summarize this. So go back. So again, taking content, enriching it, and finding the anomalies and exceptions is key to sort of narrowing down the important information that users need. Just before we jump onto the final section, there was a couple of questions. One around do you have to define a data model for this to work? And the answer is no. What's happening behind the scenes is there is a data model, but it's dynamically getting created and populated by the UI in our application as you build this content and you build these metrics and reports. So there's no sort of database work that needs to happen to do what we're talking about here. It's automatically happening in the background. The second, and can you just pop back to the home page, Louis? Second question we got was around security and access to the BI content, and it was in the realms of Cognos, but really all the BI tools are the same here. Essentially, if we've set up a tile, like we have here, Canada Sales Analysis from Tableau, and a user doesn't have access to that underlying content, what happens? Do they see the tile and they just can't access it when they click on it, or do they not see the tile at all? And the answer is that you can set it up either way. So it may be that you want to capture this image, and this is showing an accurate preview of what the dashboard looks like in my region. But if I click through into this, I might not have access in Tableau to access that, and therefore it would give me a message to say that I need to request access or get access to it. Alternatively, we can leverage the security model in the underlying tool to say this user does not have access to this at all, and therefore if they log in, they would not see this tile, and they would not be aware it's there. And then I guess there's a third piece where you can actually show content that is available that I haven't got access to without the image, and allow users to request access to that content, and it will push it into workflow that goes to the owner of that content, who then can decide whether they give access or not. So let's keep going here. So we've enriched we've cataloged the content, we've enriched it. And now we want to start making sure that the information that we're uncovering is ending up in the right place for different users, so that they're seeing it and they're taking action on it. And we're going to look at a number of different examples of how you can publish content and distribute content through everything from the concept of what we call portal pages, which is a highly curated set of content that you want to give to a particular type of user, through obviously email, mobile alerts, and mobile access through the application, and also integrating with other tools. We work with tools like Slack and Microsoft Teams, where you can start asking questions of this content, and we'll show some examples there. So Louis, let's go through a few examples of this.
Of course. Fantastic. Thank you, Mike. So the first one I'd like to talk about is the distribution via email. So you see the content that we have here into my daily favorite folder. Perhaps your users would like to receive, business users and executive loves to receive this type of information and push directly to them. So one example here is this, this digest email that is sent on a daily basis, daily digest. It regroups your key KPIs, your top movers here, the summary of all the different KPIs that you're currently following. And if I scroll down this particular email here, you see different types of exception reports that are part of this email. My other exception report we just talked about a second ago. And as I scroll down here, you'll see some sales analysis report. You'll even see this famous Tableau dashboard we keep talking about, referring to, and this Power BI dashboard that was also part of my favorite folder there. So the point that we're trying to make here is several. The first one is the fact that in one email, as you can see here, you can regroup your entire content that you're interested into, no matter where it's coming from. This particular email is made out of 8 different data sources. End users don't need to know that. All they care about is receiving all this information together into one nicely organized email, as you see here. So that's one thing that we can do. The other thing is that you can imagine that no 2 users would receive the exact same emails, because everybody care about different tiles and so on. So the point being is that this is not just a generic email that is being sent out, but it will be attached to each and every individual regarding their preferences and so on. This content can also be neatly organized into a PowerPoint automatically here. So oftentimes we get the request to put the content of these different dashboards and reports that we have here directly inside of a PowerPoint for easy distribution. So this is done automatically out of the box. So that is one way that we have to distribute information. The second one, and now I switch tab, I'm going back to the application, is this highly curated portal pages that Mike just talked about. We have one example here. Just click on my sales portal page, and as you can see here, it shows really my key indicator here, my daily sales, unit cost, and profit on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. As I scroll down here, you can even see top performing product by different types of channels. So these are live reports that you're running within the dashboard to see what's happening per different types of distribution channel. As I'm scrolling down here, again, our exception reports, as we just talked about. And even at the bottom of that page, that live Tableau dashboard that we're looking at again here, and be able to put it inside of this dashboard page. So that's another way to distribute this information. I believe I have a few examples here. Sales management shows us different types of dashboard layout. As you can imagine, we have many of those. In this particular example, I have all my aggregated KPIs. If I click on any KPIs like this, I can have my detailed information and so on. I can see them this way, very neatly organized and so on. And then going down, the beauty about this one here is the ability to put multiple different dashboards within the one same page. This example that we're looking at was actually have a Tableau, Cognos, Power BI, and ClickView, I think, part of the same dashboard page. So again, highly curated way to receive the information in one single location. So that's the second thing that we have. The third one that Mike talked about was the ability to get information via collaboration tools. Think about Microsoft Teams or Slack. And I believe I have a Slack example here. Let me pull it up. There we go. Okay, so now we're looking at Slack. And the idea here is to be able to have an application, a collaboration application like this that can talk directly to Metric Insights in order to know what's going on. So the example that I can type here, if I want to see as an example, what are, oh yeah, for sure. What are my, if you go here, what are my Canada daily sales? If I ask this question to the app itself, the app actually goes against Metric Insights and pull in this particular slide that we just looked at before. So now we see the application just brought it back in. Now, if this is exactly the chart that I was looking for, I can go ahead and decide to share it to a channel here. And if I share it to my channels, as you can see here, my demo channel, the information is appearing here. So now Louis just shared this particular task and see it here. Another example is I could be within the channel within this particular example and have a conversation with my app. So I say, hey, at Insights here, show me my website report. So show me my website. It would help if I can type my website report. And as I'm going through this, now the system is not sure which one it is, so it gives me a few options, and the one I care about is this one, what's happening in Canada. So then I can see my website visit. If this is exactly what I want to see, again, you have the information displayed directly there. So it really ensures a conversation between your particular user and the application directly, and be able to talk to to Slack and have this conversation back and forth. So that's the second mechanism. And here, if you, Mike, I just want to try in to see if we can enable our phone here and show what our phone application looks like as well.
Okay, so we'll just switch across there, just as Louis is plugging his phone in here. Yeah, the reason behind the Slack and collaboration information integration is we're trying to integrate sort of data into the conversations that are happening. So the third way that can also be used is to have Slack, have our app listening in Slack or channels for terms that we've defined within Metric Insights. So if two users are talking and they're talking about daily sales, it can even start suggesting results and pieces of content that may aid in that conversation.
Absolutely. And Mike, as you can see here, I'm now looking at my phone, and I was back in the same favorite folders that we're looking at before. You see the same content appearing here. So in this view, particular view, you have your particular Tableau dashboard, the different KPIs that we're looking at, and so on, including even this Power BI dashboard at the bottom. So it's easy to consume the information within this app. If I want to see this dashboard in itself, it's possible to just click on it and see the information here, even change my filters or my point of view for this particular dashboard. I could do this. Going back to this particular tile, of course, you have your information, the last data points, but selecting around data points can see the variation of your data points over time, and so on. If I come into my alert repository here, I can see the different types of alerts that has been triggered in the system. It looks like one of these alerts is asking me to be acknowledged. I can literally slide it and acknowledge reception of this alert. Even though in addition to that, I can even assign a particular individual to this, change the status of an alert, and so on. So it's very easy to navigate and get your information. We're looking at right now the executive brief of this particular information. But if I want to go back to my homepage and take a look at it from a different perspective and take a look at my folders, but have kind of a list view of my data, then you see it this way. So the app is really meant to really quickly see the values of your KPIs. If you have an alert being generated, acknowledge it, assign it to someone else, and bring it to resolution. So that's the content being displayed in the app.
So there's iOS and Android native apps. Alerts can also be sent to the phone tray on those devices, or SMS. And so, if I'm on the mobile, I can see those alerts. I can hot link into the application on the mobile phone to do more analysis there. So again, really three phases to what we've been talking about. So layer metric insights on top of your infrastructure to catalog everything, get it in one place, allow users to come and search for content that they're interested in. Secondly, start to get smart about uncovering what's happening in your data that users might be interested in, so that we can get it in front of them in the right place at the right time, whether it's a summary every morning that they can digest in a couple of minutes to see what's going on, or whether it's critical that we need to alert them to an issue that they need to take care of, or whether we want to start introducing data into the conversations that they're having elsewhere in the organization. So that's really the overview that we wanted to go through this morning. I'm just looking if there's any additional questions. There is a couple, so let's just get to those. Louis, maybe you can answer this one, a question about deployment options for the platform.
Absolutely. So we have two deployment options. We can deploy it on-premise, meaning within your firewall and so on to the corporate firewall, or also possible to install it in the cloud. So we work with both the Amazon and the Microsoft cloud for deployment.
Another question, can it be embedded into another product? So yeah, there's a number of embedding options. There's embedding at sort of the UI level. So you can take different components of the UI that we've been looking at, so tiles, metrics, embedded reports, and embed those into third-party applications. There's also an API into the underlying application infrastructure. So if you wanted to, query the elements, query what alerts have fired, query the underlying security model, all that sort of stuff, you can do that through the REST API, and then use that in your own application. Just check for any more questions here. One final question on security, Louis, and how we deal with things like single sign-on. Is that supported?
Yeah, single sign-on is supported. We work with all the the SAML and OAuth and so on. So yes, single sign-on is completely enabled with the application.
So what that means is, as you drill through tiles on the home screen there, we're basically controlling who has access to what. If you're not using single sign-on and I drill into a tile of a third-party application, obviously it will ask me for my login. If using single sign-on. It'll be a seamless experience for the users. All right, one final call for questions. And if not, we'll wrap up here. So thanks for your time today. As I mentioned before, we'll send out a link to this recording. If there are any additional questions, Louis put his email up on the screen here. Feel free to reach out to us directly through that or through the website. Plenty more content on the website as well. And if you go to our blog, you will see a bunch of previous webinars that we've done, which get into details of some of the areas that we looked at today. But thanks for your time, and have a good day.
Thank you.